What's up, folks? Anthony Armstrong here, former NFL receiver and host of Believe in Commanders. And with the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League. It's a league specifically created for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. Make your way over to prizepicks.com/believe and use the code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for a first deposit match up to $100. You must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details. Pick more or pick less. It's that easy. Prize Picks.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome in to a very special edition of the JMU Sports News Podcast. I am Bennett Conlon, joined by Jack Fitzpatrick, and we have a JMU NCAA tournament game this weekend.
Have you busted out your dancing shoes yet? Because the Dukes are going dancing.
Hell yeah, man. I busted them out, dusted them off. They're ready to go. I'm ready to dance.
Yeah, I've been writing that pun for the last 2 weeks, and I'm just really glad that the women's team punched their ticket so we could use it. That was 2 weeks in the making, folks.
Huge for you.
It's insane twofold. It's insane that, one, it took this long into the Coach O era for the women's team to make it into the NCAA tournament. I know the COVID year, you always bring it up. That year was a prime year for them to go on a run in the NCAA tournament, but we didn't get to experience it. They didn't even officially punch their ticket from winning the CAA tournament, although they probably would have demolished. But this team looked just as dominant in that win over Texas State in the Sun Belt Championship, 30-piecing them. I know we talked about it last podcast, but just insane that we're here now, year 7 into the Coach O era, and we finally have an NCAA tournament appearance to talk about, and it just so happens that they'll be taking on the Buckeyes. But before we get into all of that, we, of course, have some housekeeping things to take care of.
Shout out to Three Notched. We love Three Notched. We love their beer. We love that they support us. We love everything about them. And I'm excited to go back. I don't know when I'll be back, but I know I am excited to go back because we don't get there enough. I think that's the one thing I really miss about living in Virginia, especially Charlottesville, is having access to that much good beer all the time. No offense to the DC, Maryland beer scene, but it leaves something to be desired. But Three Notched, we love them. You sign up for the Fresh Beer Club.
Yeah. I will say living in Charlotte, it is pretty nice because I have 5 breweries within walking distance of my apartment. But I do miss Three Notched at times because, man, the King of Clouds, the Emperor of Clouds is all delicious. And there's just something cozy about the Valley Collab House. It might be the fact that I bought one of my first ever legal alcoholic drinks there. But for sure, whenever we're in Harrisonburg, try to go there. I'm currently in Richmond, so we'll try and head over to the Three Notch location they just opened here in Richmond to celebrate March Madness. And to celebrate March Madness, you got Bet Online. It remains your number one source for all of your college basketball betting needs this season. Get analysis of every play, prop, and point at Bet Online. You'll find the latest odds, bracket contests, team matchup info, and game trends at Bet Online. Updated odds from everything. I'm messing up this ad read terribly. Updated odds for everything from live games to the Final Four and championship game. Bet Online is your college basketball headquarters this season. Head to betonline.ag today or use your mobile device to sign up. And when you sign up and make your first deposit, you'll get a 50% welcome bonus. That's a 50% bonus. So if you deposit $100, you'll get $50 in free bets on your first deposit. You just have to use promo code BELIEVE, promo code BLEAV at sign up to receive your 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline.ag. That's where the game starts, folks.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, brother. And the game is starting. I forget which region they're technically in where the game is occurring, but the game is starting against Ohio State.
Yeah, so the regions don't make sense to me. They have double Final Four regions where I guess 2 of the regions are Greenville, South Carolina, and 2 of them are Seattle, which I think is for ticketing purposes to try to get as many fan bases like in the same location as possible. But the game's in Columbus, so they've got the first game because they do the campus sites. They're playing at Ohio State, which will be a fairly significant challenge. If they make a deep run, JMU, which is highly unexpected, then I guess we'll figure out. I think they're in Seattle, not in Greenville. If they may,
that would be such a fun. If they went on a run. And we are both on the Eastern Seaboard and would love to go to that game, and then they're just like in Seattle. That would be the biggest bummer.
Yeah, it really would. If they're Sweet 16 bound or whatever, and they're playing on the West Coast, that would be something. But I will say this is a really hard matchup. I know we had talked about maybe if they could get a 12 or a 13 seed. Did not happen. They're a 14 seed. This brings us to a listener question from Tim Emery, who asked us to do a deep dive on the metrics of the 13 seeds to see how they stack up, if they got disrespected with the seeding. Kind of hard to do a deep dive because I didn't want to pay like $1 gazillion for some of the advanced analytics sites. But looking at like net ranking, I think 3 of the 4 13 seeds had a better net than JMU. One of them had kind of an outlandish one where I forget exactly who the 13 was. I'll have to look it up, but it didn't make a ton of sense maybe that they were a 13. It's whoever Tennessee plays. Which is, drum roll please, St. Louis. I think St. Louis's metrics are not great from
but they play in the A10.
Yeah, so I guess maybe they have some strength of schedule stuff that's lifting them up, or more quality wins. I don't know exactly, but they were. I don't think they were snubbed, to be honest with you. Like they didn't dominate the Sun Belt, right? I think go ahead.
No, I was going to say exactly that. I think we are overlooking that they lost 5 Sun Belt games and a game to Maine. And I know that's been kind of like the joke of the season. Like, oh, if you just didn't lose that game to Maine, look how much better they are than they were in that game. But like they did lose that game to Maine, and they finished the season with 7 losses with kind of a bad strength of schedule. And their Sun Belt losses weren't to like Troy and Texas State. It was to Coastal and Marshall and a few other bottom feeders that like left you. Georgia State, I think, which was finished the year with like 4 or 5 conference wins in total. So they weren't good Sun Belt losses. So that pulled down their net quite a lot. And I know they finished the season strong, rattling off 3 amazing wins in the Sun Belt tournament and look really good. But there was that weird something in the water stretch, and they did lose to Maine to start the season that gave them this 14 seed.
It's also, unless I'm missing something on the NCAA website, moderately embarrassing that the NCAA breaks into a quad system and does not list that for the women, which is just like, why do you have a net? But anyway, like the webpage on that, you can find like breakdowns of the men's team very easily, like detailed team charts that you cannot for the women. That seems like they should just like do that. But
it's been kind of a thing for women's, right? The last few years when we've been like into, especially just being into JMU women's basketball so much, like you have her hoop stats, but that is quite literally 4 times more expensive than KenPom. And that's the only like good advanced analytics site you can get. And it's not even user friendly. Like what her hoop does is great, but you need like an advanced degree to know how to use her hoop stats. And that's like the only website. But then you can get so much like really great information on the men's game just at like NCAA.com,
right?
That you just can't get for the women's, like quads. And they're making improvements. They've made drastic improvements the last few years in just the NCAA women's tournament as a whole, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And this isn't supposed to be like a soapbox on like propping up women's basketball, but I think it is worth mentioning here at the top of the podcast.
Even with like bracketology, ESPN's the only one that puts it into a bracket. CBS did one, and it was written in like text format. Like, these are the 1 seeds. I'm like, do me the like, put it in a bracket.
Make it look good.
Jesus. So that was annoying. But it's kind of hard to know exactly like what Jamie's resume is. But it's probably worth noting that like their non-conference, it's not like they were doing incredible stuff. Like even from margin. So like they look at efficiency metrics for the men. If they do that in the women's game, like 4-point win over Liberty, 2-point win over VCU. I think they trailed Maryland Eastern Shore at halftime.
They did.
Like there's some of these where like early in the year they have wins that now we just look at them like a win. Where when those were happening, like I would say that JMU was not particularly impressive until like the end of December.
I would agree with that.
And
And
then
even then they even had that something in the water stretch in mid-January.
Right.
So
right.
like
So
this wasn't a dominant season by any means for JMU. This was
No,
a down year in the CAA for them. Like if they had lost 5 games in the CAA, we would be mad.
right. They've had some teams that have entered the NCAA tournament like monster programs, and this isn't quite that. I think with that being said, like winning the competitive Sun Belt and getting into the NCAA tournament is a massive success. But I saw some fans after the Texas State game being like, oh, like I don't think Ohio State wants to see us. And I don't agree with that take.
I would agree with that as well. This is a Ohio State team that peaked at number 2 in the rankings. Over their last 5 games, their lone losses have been to Iowa and Maryland, 2 good programs. Iowa, maybe the national player of the year in Caitlin Clark. So you kind of like, and they still hung with them. I think over their last 10, they may have lost 3 games. 2 of those were to Iowa. Like Ohio State's a very, very good program. At one point, the longest winning streak in the nation, I think, or tied for the longest winning streak.
They started 19-0.
Like Ohio State is a damn good program, and I don't think they cared who the 14 seed was going to be. They are focused on destroying them. JMU probably got one of the toughest 3 seeds, if you ask me.
Ohio State in the Big Ten semifinals trailed Indiana, which is a 1 seed at halftime by 20, and won the game. Like they're like a dark horse Final Four contender. They're loaded. One of their best players missed like most of the season when they were starting 19-0. They have her back, and they're sort of like working her back into the rotation and sort of gel as a team here. So they're loaded. Like the Big Ten's really good. They're a really good team. This is an incredibly challenging game. In one that I don't think the lines have come out on some of these sports books that I would expect to have some first round stuff here soon. But you look at, I could see them being like a 20-point underdog. And I don't think that's like rude. I think that just speaks to like how good Ohio State is.
Just to put this into perspective a little bit, we've talked about like the something in the water stretch for JMU, and they lost to Coastal, and they lost to Marshall. Not Marshall wasn't in the something in the water, but like Georgia State. Teams you shouldn't be losing to. Ohio State had something similar happen to them in January and kind of again in February. But these are the teams they lost to. Number 10 at the time, Iowa. Number 6, Indiana. Unranked Purdue. So, all right, that's not terrible, but that's a Big Ten team.
Tournament team.
That was tournament team. That was 3 losses in a row. Then they rattled off. Then they got a win over Wisconsin. Then lost to number 10, Ohio State. Got a win. Then lost to number 2, Indiana, got 2 more wins, and then a 2-point loss to number 7, Maryland. So kind of a like something in the water stretch to finish the season, going into February, and then March they did what they had to do. But like those are good teams they lost to, that are teams that they were probably underdogs in all of those games. I don't think they were favored in any of those games. Maybe the Iowa one when they were number 2 and Iowa was 10, but maybe.
Yeah, I mean they're really good. Like it's going to be a hard game, and I know some JV fans have been like, if they play like they did against Texas State, it's like if they shoot 75% from 3, JMU could be fairly competitive in the game. That's a major ask for a team that shoots like 31% from 3 on the season.
And not to like, how would you quantify this if JMU was able to pull off the upset? What is a comparable? Like, is this like UConn losing when they were at the peak of their power? Would this be like taking down South Carolina?
No, it wouldn't be that much, I don't think. I think those teams are still like an echelon where they're like dynasties. But it's still like a team that I think probably is like thinking Elite 8 Final Four, which in the women's game, when they're thinking that, usually you're like at least getting close or making a competitive push. Now, the draw is tough too, because North Carolina, which has a really good women's team, JMU saw them earlier in the year, is a 6, which I think is underseeded. So it could be North Carolina, Ohio State, or if you're Ohio State, you're probably pissed that you're playing a team of that caliber in the second round. But I don't know, like Ohio State's like a top 15, top 10 caliber team. That would be massive. It's a massive upset if they could do it.
Yeah. Currently the line is JMU plus 18.5.
Oh, where's that?
Caesar Sportsbook.
They do have a line. Wow. Yeah, that makes sense.
So Ohio State plus 18.5. Over under is 143. I would not be surprised if Ohio State got 80 of those.
That would make sense math wise, right? It's like an 80 to 60 kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think the part that is like scariest is it's not like they're a high octane offense, whatever. They run a full court press the entire game.
Yeah, it's like havoc defense from VCU, and I know it's kind of a no-no to like compare men's to women's, but that's just whenever I see a full court press being done like for an entire game, my head just initially goes to like peak Shaka Smart VCU running the full court press. So JMU's going to have a lot of issues breaking that because they haven't seen a full court press a lot this season, and when they have, they struggled to break it.
Yeah, it's like that's just a lot of pressure on a team to have a constant full court press. Like there aren't many teams that are psychotic enough to do that defensively. Like that's just a wild strategy to be like, we're gonna press all the time.
Can I say something? If I was a basketball coach, I would do that though. I'm like in the offseason, I'd be like, we're just running wind sprints. We are getting your stamina up. And then we're running full court press the entire season because no one else sees that. No one else is stupid enough to do that. I appreciate that from the Buckeyes.
And it's one where like when they play like some elite level teams, they get smoked because they're breaking that. Like Iowa dropped 105 on them and beat them by 30 in the Big Ten title because they're breaking the press and scoring like it will. But when you're a team that's not able to do that, and like there's no Sunbelt team that runs at you with like an insane top level full court press. I mean, they're 17th nationally in turnovers forced per game. They force over 20 turnovers per game. JMU has done a lot better this year thanks to Caroline Drummond with not turning it over as much. But I think Drummond averages like 29 minutes a game. Like, are you running her for 40? No. So then, like, I don't know. They like her as the primary ball handler. Maybe Kiki does some stuff, but it's going to have to be a team effort. And your backup point guard, Chloe Sterling, has played a decent amount early in the year, but really has only played double digits one time since the calendar turned to 2023. So
here's a question. If JMU manages to pull off this massive upset, you probably cannot find a money line for this game on any sports book. You can probably only bet, which tells you it's a massive line. Who's the X factor for JMU to win outright?
I think you're going to need crazy performances from like the obvious two, Kiki and Peyton McDaniel scoring wise, but it'll probably end up being Drummond in terms of like leading the full court press break. Because if you get down early, it's going to be hard. And even if they're not turning it over a lot, like Ohio State has scores. I guess the one weakness the Buckeyes have seems to be like rebounding, where JMU sometimes does a pretty nice job. So maybe the Dukes can rebound at an exceptionally high level. But that seems like a pretty big ask. It's also hard to look at like a Big Ten team and be like, well, look, their rebounding numbers are a little bit of a letdown. It's like, well, would they look like that if they played, 18 Sun Belt games? Probably not.
Yeah, it's a great point. Vast difference in skill level between the Big Ten and the Sun Belt. I feel like in the women's game that is even more pronounced as well, the difference between high majors and then even the difference between the best teams in the high majors and the mid majors. Like South Carolina is on a different echelon of Tennessee.
Right.
Like South Carolina would 40-piece Tennessee if they played tomorrow. It's like just not fair. Like just the difference in teams from the top to the top. It's a mile wide.
It's wild.
The difference between maybe this is me doing hyperbole to get the point across. The difference between like JMU and the worst team in the Sun Belt isn't the difference between South Carolina and the second best team in the SEC. That's a hyperbole because it's not that drastic, but trying to get my point across.
It's still a huge, like the top level teams, there's a significant gap. And it's hard to be a double-digit seed and win. And you kind of have to get to a point where like it's a program tradition where I think is the exciting angle for JMU is like if they can become like an NCAA tournament regular, but I was cracking up because I was looking at Florida Gulf Coast and was talking to a writer for her hoop stats for a different thing that I was doing with work about how they're like a possible Cinderella. I think Florida Gulf Coast and women's has made the tournament like every year, he was saying, since 2017. And their coach is like anti mid-range. They've taken like 15 mid-range jumpers the entire season, which is sweet.
I appreciate
JMU is very much not anti mid-range, but but like this fun analytic-based approach. Their net is 36, and they're a 12 seed. Like 6 straight years making the NCAA tournament, analytically based, net in the top 40, and they're a 12 seed. So it's like if you're a JMU and you build like this monster program, like you're still maybe looking like 12 seeds in a Sweet 16 run. Whereas like if the men's team put together some crazy team, like it wouldn't be out of the question they could have like a dark horse Final Four run. I'm not saying that's realistic, but you'll see mid-majors.
I
like
see what you mean.
St. Peter's made the Elite Eight. Like they have no business doing that. The women's game, you're not going to have a 15 seed make the Elite Eight in the same sense that you've never had a 14 seed even win a single game in the women's tournament. So
yeah, I see what you mean. There was a stat on ESPN the other day. I think 13, 14, 15, and 16 seeds are combined like 1 of 586. And it's just like, oh, there's no chance. And then you look at like the tournament challenge and you can click in. You showed me this the other day, and it shows you like the odds of winning, the odds of this, that. Who's got the edge? And it's 99% everything for the Buckeyes.
Just insanity. Yeah, some of those, some of that analysis.
And then you look at notable results. Ohio State has 3 lines worth. Then JMU's North Carolina lost by 11, and you're like, great, cool.
Which is also just disrespect, but whatever. It's funny
is it?
I think you could put like some other games on there, but I guess is that
they
the
only
tournament
include
team
tournament teams? They're only tournament teams.
Is that really the only tournament team they played?
Yeah.
That's a bummer.
No one in the Sun Belt, and I don't think Maryland Eastern Shore's in the bracket this year. I think they just missed out.
I guess none of those teams got in.
Oh, shucks.
Man,
I wonder why.
That does suck. That really puts it in perspective, though. I know there's some JMU fans who are mad that like they didn't get a look in or much talk when the bracket was going by. It's like, they're not like.
I'm also not trying to throw shade at the watch party. Awesome that JMU put that together, and was really fantastic to see there was a solid turnout. But then you see like what the look-ins actually look at like, and it's like a full section behind the team, and it just wasn't like, I don't think ESPN wanted to feature them for 30 seconds while they were going through the bracket when they could feature like a 12 seed who was full.
It's also like not.
It's also
like
the first time. Sorry, we don't deserve anything.
That's kind of my thing. It's like I think JMU fans. This is more than women's basketball. I think because the women's basketball, I wouldn't say that like women's basketball fans are like we deserve this more than like other JMU sports. Football. But if you have mostly football, but it's one where like just kind of like earn it. You know what I mean? Like softball had all this like disrespect for years. You know how they're like very much respected now, even though they've had down years the last couple of years, because they made the Women's College World Series in 1-2 games. Like you want to earn respect and get like look-ins, like go beat Ohio State then. Like schedule a stronger non-conference, beat North Carolina in the non-conference. Like if you want to be discussed in bracketology or whatever when they're going through the bracket, don't be a 14 seed. It's the I know that some of that's out of their control, but it's a little.
Don't lose to Maine.
Yeah,
like
some of the right.
Beat UNC. Like I see what you mean. Like do it. Don't come. And it's not the women's team that's doing it.
No,
it was a little bit of the fans, but like even for the fans, you can't talk. We haven't made the tournament in 7 years.
And I think that's kind of the mindset for like should be for every JMU program, like football or whatever, where it's like, oh, we're not getting enough preseason love, which isn't really true. We're getting like probably too much, but like
we're ranked in the way too early top 25, and it's like
But sometimes people get all upset. They're like, oh, it's like, well, just go out and win the games that you need. Like the same with lacrosse. Like lacrosse is highly respected because they went out on a national level and just beat the crap out of people. That's kind of what you have to do.
Well, that's a fantastic segue into lacrosse. They can't stop winning. I think they've rattled off 5 straight wins.
7.
Oh, I was slipping at the wheel on that one. 7 straight wins, and then their next slate of games, hit me.
They play Florida on Saturday. Host them. Top 10 matchup.
So they've taken down number 5 Maryland 8-7, took down Ohio State, beat Liberty on the road 13-5, and just took down number 23 Johns Hopkins 17-10. And next up is number 8 Florida at home. Just an absolutely fantastic home schedule for lacrosse. And then that will be their first AAC game as they welcome themselves into the American, first season for JMU in the American Athletic Conference. Florida's in there, and the AAC kind of conference schedule this season will be Temple, ODU, Vanderbilt, Cincinnati, and ECU. Quite an interesting grouping in the American, but I think what the American women's lacrosse kind of conference does is pull in like SEC teams and just like random teams where the football conference doesn't have a lacrosse section.
Yeah, it's essentially like, hey, they care about women's lacrosse. Let's give it a go and just all get together and make it work scheduling wise. But they're playing darn well. Looking forward to that. They already have the Ohio State win, maybe foreshadowing. Maybe the women's team can get it done. Maybe some of the people at Ohio State say, hey, let's visit Bridgeforth and see what happens there. I don't know.
That was a funny tweet you had. I mean, who knows? The Big Ten may come calling. If JMU keeps us within 15 points, we may be getting a call up in the next few days. Jeff Bourne gets a ring, and hello? And this is the Big Ten. We saw what your women's team did in the NCAA tournament first round. We want to bring your entire athletic department into the Big Ten. I know we just brought in USC and UCLA. We want to go bi-coastal. I know we have Rutgers. I know we have Maryland. But we want to extend into Virginia a little bit because we know Virginia is just as big as a media market as Los Angeles, specifically Harrisonburg and the Valley. So we want to get you guys on. We think it'll be really big for our media deal. And you'll get, 1/100th of the $1 billion contract we just signed. Does that sound all right, Jeff? That's how the call's going to go.
They want Virginia, but they don't want UVA or Tech.
Oh, no, not ODU, not Liberty. Screw them. I mean, not Bridgewater, not Shenandoah, none of those ODAC schools, Sweetbriar, get them out of here. They want JMU and JMU only.
That's exactly right.
No VCU.
None of those teams.
No Mason. I'm out of Virginia schools. No Radford. Okay, now I'm out.
That'd be crazy if Radford was like a basketball-only invite. Big Ten. That would shake some stuff up.
Yeah, it would. Something else that's changing stuff up. The Diamond Dukes baseball will start off. Hot start to the season, then lost that series to UMass Lowell. And then since the last time we recorded, they took down VMI and VCU in really dominant games, gave us some hope, and then lost the USC Upstate series, unfortunately, and then got a 14-6 win against VCU. They're playing Lexington today. First pitch happened 47 minutes ago at the time of recording, and then we open up conference play on Friday against Coastal. All hope for this team has gone out the window. Maybe that's too aggressive.
Slightly dramatic, but it's probably true. No, I don't know. 10-7, and you look, they're doing some good work in the midweeks, but they played their last two series. They lost to UMass Lowell and South Carolina Upstate, and they had a chance to really bounce back against Upstate. I believe the two losses were both walk-off losses, so that's kind of hard to swallow. I don't think it's going to be a great season for them. We've both said that a lot.
Look, I watched ODU this past weekend, and JMU's not playing them until May 12th, so a long ways away. A lot can change between now and May 12th.
They beat up on Charlotte.
ODU was 12-1 going into that series. After losing the opening game of the year, they rattled off 12 straight wins. I watched ODU get boat race 10-2 in the Friday game. Charlotte, program record and strikeouts, blah, blah, blah. But the real story was the Saturday game against a pretty solid starter. Not great, but a solid starter for Charlotte. Absolutely demolished them. When ODU's on, that lineup is deadly. They hit some of the most home runs in the nation. I think they have near 40 now on the year. So they can mash it. And they have pretty good pitchers. They have the Conference USA freshman pitcher of the year who started for them on Saturday and shut down Charlotte's lineup. And Charlotte and JMU, to me, are very similar teams. And ODU was picked 7th in the preseason coaches poll in the Sun Belt. That's the 7th best team. They got Southern Miss. Well. They got a lot of really good teams in the Sun Belt. It may get ugly.
I think so. Softball, sort of maybe a similar boat. We'll see here. They've got Duke tonight as we're recording on Wednesday. That's a ranked Duke team. Then they play Coastal, which has a very, very good record and a pretty solid RPI or whatever they got for baseball, softball. It's going to be a challenge, folks.
But at least softball's 13-5 and like has a winning record over these like last few invitationals.
They've looked good. Alyssa Humphrey just threw a perfect game.
Yep.
So that's pretty darn cool. They're doing some good stuff. Excited about that. Excited about their future and how they develop. They do have some young talent. So a little more bullish on their future than I was after like the first 2 games. But I still think it could be kind of a rocky season.
First 2 games. Yeah, the Sun Belt's good. But this is why we were so excited about joining the Sun Belt. Like, I know we sound really negative, but...
Oh, yeah. We sound super negative today.
But this is why we wanted to join it. We knew football would be good. They'd make that jump. We knew the basketballs were on the right trajectory. And I think, not to toot our own horns, but we've been kind of proven right. Maybe we were actually a little bit too low on football. We thought it would take them a little longer for the jump. But here they are making waves. Basketball was in contention for the men's to win the Sun Belt. And then the women's won it. They found their way to the NCAA tournament. That's exactly kind of what we expected, especially because the Sun Belt in terms of basketball power is like very similar to the CAA, or at least what the CAA was before they brought in all those terrible teams. I mean, they brought in Monmouth, who like finished the year with like 3 wins. Even
the women's team was like the 8th seed and they won it.
Cool.
Kept like their best team out of the NCAA tournament. Sweet.
I was thinking about that for the Sun Belt. Like, Louisiana kind of got a good draw with Tennessee, with missing Zagai Ziegler. But I was thinking about it. I was like, I would so much rather have Marshall in this tournament.
If Marshall playing Tennessee, I'd pay I think teams in the Sun Belt would kill to have that.
Like, man, they could have had a potential Sweet 16. I think with that Marshall team, they had the potential for a Sweet 16 run, and man, the conference would love that money. And then I'm looking at Louisiana. I'm like, they could still beat Tennessee, but I watched JMU beat Louisiana. And now I'm supposed to expect them to go in and beat a SEC school that like dominated Texas, which is arguably one of the best teams in the nation.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
But going back to what I was saying, that's what we wanted. Like with the Sun Belt, it brings like fun baseball, it brings fun softball.
Exactly.
And as softball grows and they develop some of this talent, we're going to have some electric atmospheres at Veterans Memorial Park.
When was the last time you were interested in a softball conference series?
Never?
Yeah, it's like literally never. Now they're playing like this loaded Coastal team on the road, and I'm like, oh, I'm interested to see like what happens this weekend.
They're going to be playing like ranked Texas State, potentially ranked Louisiana.
Yeah, they got some good teams in the schedule. I'm amped for it, and we can end here on a positive note. Got a listener question I forgot to get to that I think wraps up women's basketball on an extremely positive note.
I love it.
This is from Ryan, JMU, 2019.
I'm going to go with he graduated in 2019.
Well, his handle says 2018, which is throwing me off, but it's his class of 2018, but he got the handle with 2018.
Wait, I thought you said his handle was 2019.
Sorry, his handle's 2018, but then his bio says JMU class.
Wow, you messed that up in every. Okay, hit me with the question.
But then his name, not his handle, says 2019. Ryan, hit us up afterwards and let us know. Give us some more clarity here. But he says, assuming the season comes to an end versus the Buckeyes on Saturday, probably fair, or later, what expectations should we have next year for the women? Who are the starting 5, depending on if Kiki returns or not? And then ditto for the men. The men's probably too hard because of who they're going to add.
I also appreciate the assuming the season ends against the Buckeyes or later. Like that's a pretty good assumption that the season will end.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
Well, at some point it's going to end. But
I like adding in the later. I think that was nice. That was just kindness there.
Yeah,
like,
100%
hey, they can pull this upset.
We can both assume though it ends on Saturday. If I have really high expectations for this team moving forward. I also expect Kiki to come back. Especially in this like age of NIL, and I know JMU hasn't gotten like really big into it, but she can capitalize on her name moving into next year. I don't mean to be rude when I say this. I don't think she gets drafted by the WNBA at this point in time. So from my personal perspective, I don't see a reason for her to make that jump. She can stay at JMU, develop her game a little bit, get paid by NIL, and then go to the WNBA or even play overseas. We've seen Kamaya has been balling out, I think, in Italy for the last few years. So expect Kiki to come back. And with that being said, probably Chloe Sterling slots in, starting point guard. Probably Kobe King-Hawea at the 2. Trying to think who else is.
Depends how they do the
is
Peyton McDaniel
Kozlova a
thing.
senior?
No, Kozlova's back, so she'll probably be year 5 or whatever.
Peyton.
You could just go kind of, you could probably just go what?
Peyton at the 3 and then Kiki at the 4?
You could do that, play sort of a smaller, more athletic lineup.
Because I'm trying to think who else would be the 3. This is great.
I wonder how some of the freshmen who didn't play a ton get in there, whether it's Torre or Maya Kone, because they're super athletic. I wonder if they could develop. And then Oderkirk and Neff, assuming they are both back, will probably slot in for some minutes. It's going to be pretty similar.
Yeah, it's like they're going to essentially run this team back.
They're kind of running it back, and then maybe you try to bring in someone to replace Drummond. And if you have some of the younger players who decide to leave or something like that, then you replace them maybe with transfers or something.
And on the men's team, I think there's going to be a lot of moving and shaking.
Yeah.
A lot of transfers are probably going to be coming in. We'll probably see. I would expect 90% of the freshmen to transfer out. Like that just seems like kind of been the MO the last few years.
I think they can keep
JMU.
some of them.
I'm just going off of what's happened the last few years. It feels like every year, like they get in like 3 or 4 recruits that were like, they can be good in 3 years. And then
I think these freshmen are better. So I actually would not be surprised if the scholarship freshmen stayed. Like Roberson, I feel like has a path.
I think Roberson may be a starter next year.
And then Brown played enough that I feel like he's coming back. And so then
did he play enough? Did he play enough to get enough tape and leave?
I don't think so.
No.
But then, maybe. But then like Bryson Blaine, I feel like he's got some potential as a wing. I'm fascinated to see what they do in the portal, because if they add a true big,
there's plenty of them out there already. Plenty of them out there. We're not playing this weekend. Make some calls, Mark. Let's try and get a couple bigs on campus in the next 2 months. Is Friedel back?
Yeah.
Okay.
They should be good next year, wouldn't they?
Who's left? Who left? Votto and Takal?
Votto, Takal, Sule, Meze. Sule, Meze, Vade, Mose. Mezzi, Takal, Morse, and Sule are your guys who are leaving on scholarship, unless someone transfers out. But
okay, so definitely need a few big men, because Sule and Meze were like the big.
Yeah, you need bigs.
If they go guard heavy again, I might go to the AUBC and start a picket line and just start rioting.
There's a couple like transfer reports out there. It's like these 6'4" guards, like, and they've been contacted by James Madison. I'm like, Mark,
no. Bring in Tyler Nickel, the UNC kid, East Rockingham kid. Bring him home. Bring him home, Mark. I mean, we'll give him a bag.
Kind of a wing, but bring him home.
We'll give him the money we make from 3-Notch if he wants to come and play. It'll be NIL. He'll have to wear a JMU Sports News shooting sleeve. But other than that, we'll require nothing from him.
That'd be so sick.
What if here's an idea. We crowdsource this. We get 4 of our favorite big man transfers, right? And then we put out a poll. Whoever wins the poll, we then give NIL money to come to JMU. Is that allowed?
I don't think you can do it that obviously pay for play. But I think under the table, I think if we delete like the final 5 minutes of this podcast, I think we can make
so like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Everyone sees the
like,
poll.
Like
who would you want?
Like, God, wouldn't he be so marketable?
I'm just saying, Tyler Nickel, we got a bag waiting for you. 5 pennies and a cookie.
That'd be pretty sweet to to get someone on that. I was filling out my bracket or whatever.
Yeah.
And talking to our friend Nick Lawrenson.
Love Nick. Shout out Nick, mid-major madness. He's going to the CBI.
Out
of all the college basketball happening, my man's.
I think he's going first. He's going to the NCAA tournament, and then he's going to the CBI.
He's insane.
Yeah, but no, Oral Roberts, right? Everyone knows him for the guard, Ace Miss or whatever, who drops like 25 a game.
Yeah, he's really good and
experienced. They made the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
Dude, they got an Arkansas transfer. He's 7'5", and he shoots.
Oral Roberts.
Yeah, and he shoots.
I thought it was Colgate.
I think he's an Arkansas guy. And
no. I thought Colgate got the Arkansas transfer that's 7'5".
It's Oral Roberts. Maybe is there another one?
I think Colgate also. I think Colgate also has a big man that can shoot.
What is going on?
Okay, while you look that up, I'm just upset that Mark didn't go after that Oral Roberts big man.
He shoots lights out from three. He has an incredible block percentage. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Like, you're telling me he would rather play at Oral Roberts than Harrisonburg, 3 notches in the area? The guy's already played like 4 years of college ball. No chance. That's all I'm saying. Is like, you give me a 7'5" guy. Now, this is what I want. You give me a 7'5" guy who's lethal from 3. That seems doable.
I feel like there's a lot of them out there. Okay, yeah, I mixed it up. I've been telling everyone that Colgate had the 7'5" shooter, but it was Oral Roberts. Good team.
Who have you been telling me?
Like 4 different people. 4 different. Yeah, at the grocery store, they're checking out. Boop, boop. Yeah, I think Colgate's the real Cinderella here, folks. They got a 7'5" kid who can shoot the 3. Sir, your total's 1482.
His block percentage in conference play was 13.2%. What is that? Like 13.2% of possessions he's on the side. He's blocking it. Is that right?
I don't know. That sounds right.
That's insanity. And he shoots. Well, I guess he's only 33% from 3.
But he's 7'5".
And he's 65% from 2, and he shoots 81% from the free throw line.
Like, that's a guy. Even if you're shooting 25% and you average 1-3 a game,
yeah,
like, that forces people to come out on you and get out of the paint, and then it opens up so much of your. Let me stop.
They have 4 players who play significant minutes with an offensive rating over 118.
So are you telling me? Are you telling me that even though Oral Roberts is the trendy upset pick, I should pick Oral Roberts to take down Duke?
I don't know if they're going to win that game, but they also run the 27th fastest pace in the country. So I don't want to hear anything about how JMU goes fast, so they have to be small. No, there's a 7'5" man playing for Oral Bob, who is putting up huge numbers.
Playing for Blowjob Bob over there.
There's no reason that we can't go get some 7. I don't know. I'm not asking.
You almost said 7'8". You almost said ain't no reason we couldn't go out there and get Victor Wembanyama and let him just eat in the Sun Belt.
I'm not asking for an 8-footer, but if there's one out there with range, that would change the Sun Belt.
Honestly, I just want a Kevin Samuel. I'm not greedy. I just want a Kevin Samuel. I want a big body. Bring back DeVell Phillips.
If we don't have a guy who's 6'10" or above next year, and they can do this by Jason Kreck rounding up Jarrell Roberson's height to on the roster. I'm starting every podcast during basketball season just mentioning that. But again, if you want to round Roberson up and say Ada Grossberg, that counts for me.
What about Yohani Dallenberg? He's got to have 1 more year of eligibility, right? Or like half a season. He's only 6'8"?
Only 6'8". He was a big body, though.
He was a big body. What about? Can we get Dwight Wilson back? All right. Well, anything else you want to add as you freeze?
No, I'm good. Just lamenting the fact that Dwight Wilson left.
Well, Mark Byington, we really want a big. Please bring us one. We'll pay. We'll do it under the table. We won't make it obvious. We won't do Twitter polls if you don't want us to. So, for Bennett Conlon, my name's Jack Fitzpatrick. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day. See ya.
Thank you for listening to Believe. You can show support to your host by subscribing to the show and giving us a 5-star rating on your preferred platform. Check us out at Believe.com and search for BLEAV on YouTube.